Hello, and welcome back to Practice Forward, where we explore how architects are evolving their practice in a changing world. I'm Owen Bush, and today we're joined by someone who's made stress-free not just a promise, but a method. Jamaal Siddiqui is the founder of Yusra Design and Build, a Boston area design firm known for its mix of New England vernacular and Islamic geometric detail. Its portfolio of adaptive reuse and a workflow that makes even the most complex projects feel calm. We're talking about everything from historic barns to multifamily clusters. And yes, even the sequencing magic that keeps it all on time and on budget. Jamaal, welcome.
Hey, Owen, how's it going?
Good to see you today. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Oh, very well, very well. Thank
you for having me on the podcast.
Yeah, of course. Hope it's a stress-free podcast.
Yep. I think we're on the same wavelength over there.
So I'm guessing this stress-free thing didn't happen by accident?
No, definitely not. It was years of going through the wheelhouse and experiencing it myself firsthand, and seeing other homeowners going through that struggle and kind of learning as I went through that process and working with architectural firms as well as construction companies, and finding a median that really blended those two to come up with this stress-free build method.
Yeah. Well, somebody said to me the other day, it just seems like the craziest idea for how a building would be made, that, you know, you would design something in 3D and then turn it into these 2D drawings and then hand it off to somebody you never met before and say, okay, turn these drawings back into this 3D object for me.
Yep.
It's amazing to me that this is still the way that we work, but you know, clearly you guys are kind of an end-to-end service, right? So
yeah.
No chance for any of that confusion to happen along the way there.
That is correct. So on that point, actually, I wanted to mention one of my mentors who did a lot of research on this, looked back as far back as the Egyptian time period when the architects were the builders. That's where it all started, where the architect used to be on site directing the quote unquote subcontractors, let's call it, people that used to work at that time. And they were the maestros. They were directing the entire process. And sometime along that period, we lost that connection. And we're all striving, the people who are really at the forefront of the design build process are really striving to bring that aspect of design and construction together. And architects used to build back in the day, and that's what we're trying to do now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about a lot of workflows that are really kind of changing that whole sort of contract between architects and construction and representation of buildings, and so it's a lot of different ways, a lot of different new approaches and new things going on these days.
Yep, it's an ever-changing process.
Yeah. So Jamaal, tell me a little bit about where you grew up and what attracted you to architecture.
So I just naturally grew up with the curiosity of spaces and how they work. Even as a kid, I used to sketch out and rearrange furniture just to see how different configurations changed the feeling of a room. I wasn't just playing, I was actually experimenting with how people would move and gather in spaces. Looking back, that curiosity, I think, sparked what keeps me pulling towards this design theory and moving forward, looking into that.
Mm-hmm. And was there like a moment where you really realized that this was the thing that you really wanted to do, to shaping spaces for people?
Yeah, most definitely. So back in high school, I took a class, and I would say that changed everything. And this class was a CAD class. It started with 2D, right? So everything starts with 2D and goes into 3D. And same, it was, my whole process started with taking that 2D CAD class, and then from there it was just the C was open for me. And then I took what was just doodling and sketching and started to learn the CAD process, and then really translated my ideas into more of like technical drawings. And then at that point, it kind of struck me that this isn't just a hobby. It's more so of something that I could actually turn into an actual career.
And then, so then I take it you studied architecture?
Yeah, I started back in high school, graduated, and then I did an internship right out of high school at an architectural firm local to where I lived. And then from there, I went to Boston Architectural College, got my architectural degree over there, and then was working simultaneously for another firm. And then from there, I worked there for about just over a decade, and then started thinking about the idea that design is amazing, but I wanted more. I wanted to be able to take those designs and translate them into something that was tangible. And while I was doing design work at the architectural firm, I on the side used to do construction work as well. So I used to be very hands-on and do small renovation projects like a kitchen or a bathroom, and take my ideas and actually make them into something that was tangible for small clients, but something that built a foundation. And from there, that clicked something in my mind that I was like, all right, this is something that can actually be done. You can take your designs and you can be the one who's building them as well. And then that's where I started digging into the idea of the design build process. And obviously I'm not the creator of the design build process. It's more so that's something that's already there. And there's a lot of great companies out there that are doing it. And I wanted to be part of it and learn how that process worked. And from that point on, I started working with another design build firm and really learned the process and what it takes to actually take the architectural side of the project and translate it into the construction side of the project. It's not as clear cut as you would think. There's a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot more to juggle with when you're doing those projects from start to finish. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of similar in my company. We have a sort of an end-to-end service where, you know, we scan, we model, we do a lot of different component parts that all kind of turn into sort of what's called, you know, the pre-design process on projects. How did you start your own firm, and what launched you into doing that?
So for me, it was the gap and the frustration between the design and construction, where I was at an architectural firm and I saw that homeowners and clients, after they came to us for design, then they had to go basically fishing in the pool trying to figure out who would be building it. And there were so many factors in them having to try to choose the right contractor. And then once they chose a contractor, time and time again, there would be questions that came about, and they would have to come back to us either for budgetary reasons or for just aesthetic reasonings where they had to change the design. That was the first, I think, straw that got pulled, and there was like, all right, there's that disconnect happening. And then while I was doing the construction side of things, where I used to just do small little projects here and there, it would be questions that used to come up that the client would ask me, and I'm putting myself into the contractor shoes, even though I wasn't a licensed contractor at that time, but there were small questions that came to me that would jog that question of like, oh, this could have been talked about in a design process or resolved during the design process. And that frustration and that disconnect was the main reasoning that kind of jump-started this idea that I really want to be able to create a company and a firm that can blend these two trades and methodologies together and bring them under one roof so that it's seamless process for not just the architects and contractors, but mainly for the clients and the homeowners at the end.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine it's a frustrating divide, huh? I mean, it's you know, architects don't make buildings; they make representations of buildings. But then to see that, I would imagine to see the vision just be diminished over and over again in the construction process is Must be very frustrating for architects.
Yeah, no, it is. And my main goal from the start was to just create a clear line of responsibility where whoever the client is, they can reach out to one person or one entity and have that question answered. They don't have to jump through the hoops of reaching out to the architect, the structural engineer, interior designer, and then the contractor, and figuring out who the responsible person is to talk with. It's the one company that they reach out to, and we can answer those questions as needed and make sure we come up with a solution.
So when did you launch Yusra?
So that's a that's a tricky question. So the Yusra mythology and the idea of having a company came about, I would say 10 to 11 years ago. And so back in 2015, that's where that whole idea came about, that I want to create a company that can bring these two together, the architectural side, the design side, and the construction side. But it wasn't until 2019, I would say 2019 or 2020, right around COVID, where I bit the bullet and said, all right, we're going to make this happen. And it was a long process, right? So it was about learning. I never liked taking just rash decisions where there's no background and no learning process to back up the process that we've created. It was a lot of learning prior to executing. So working in an architectural firm, and then going into a design build firm and doing the construction side of things. All those experiences are what created Yusra Design Build. So it was a working process. So I don't like to put an exact date, but if you were to, the company came into fruition back in 2016, 17. But the mythology in that came about a lot before that.
Yeah, of course. So you describe your process as a stress-free build method.
Yes.
So how did that philosophy evolve, and what's one of the non-negotiables that makes that work?
So the stress-free build method came from watching too many homeowners just burn out during the project and the entire process. So I wanted to flip the script. It was more of creating a non-negotiable clarity for the homeowners. From day one, we're upfront about cost, schedule, and process, and we give clients the ability to see decisions through renderings before any demolition begins. That way they feel confident and they know what to expect instead of being anxious throughout the entire process. Sure,
right. And what do you do to manage clients' expectations when they're looking at renderings? What kind of strategies do you use for that?
So typically we have a 3-step process. We have the schematic design process, then the design development process, and the construction documentation process. The schematic process is basically we design several different schemes for our homeowner and create massing models. It gives them an idea of what the massing of the space is, or how the space is going to flow volumetrically versus thinking about it with materials attached to it. Once they've come up or decided on a scheme that they prefer to move forward with, we then move into the design development phase, where we choose a lot of the finishes, go through the selection process, and then create up-to-date 3D renderings that show exactly what the space is going to look and feel like with the materials that they've chosen and the finishes that they've chosen. That allows them to really picture the space in real time. Following that, once they've confirmed a design and the materials, the very last stage is for us to create photorealistic renderings so that they can have something that they can look forward to during the construction process, and it keeps the excitement up throughout the entire process.
Yeah. Do you ever feel like you overcommitted yourself with the renderings? Do you ever feel like the GC side of you is hating the architect side of you?
That's a battle that I have every day with my designers and myself. Also, it's like, who's going to be responsible? Typically, in the design bid build method, you have somebody to point fingers at. In this situation, you're just pointing fingers back at yourself. So it is a funny process, but having that control allows us to really think about the design before we dive into construction. And it allows us to make and manipulate the design early on so that we can execute the process more accurately.
Yeah. So let's talk about a couple of these adaptive reuse projects you've done. So, almost all these projects are, smaller residential projects, right? So there's a project here called the Otis residence, which looks like a pretty extensive adaptive reuse project. And so how did you decide this is a historic building?
It's a pre-Victorian home.
Okay. Yeah.
So there was a lot of work that was done to the house over its time period of being in existence, and there was renovations done. And some of the things that were original to the house were these beautiful arches and subtle curves that they gave the house its true character from the inside. And rather than just flattening those out and replacing them, we decided to really amplify those. And what we did was we took those ideas of the arches and curves and implemented them into a truly unique design for the foyer, and made the space as a sculptural statement as soon as you walk into the space. And one of the ways that we were only able to do that was by relocating an existing narrow staircase to the rear of the house and changing the flow of how the house worked, basically programmatically.
Oh yeah, I see that here. Wow, amazing. Yeah. And it's really nice. I mean, it's very historic, but it also has a very contemporary kind of almost futuristic kind of look to it. And some of these architectural details. And I mean, some of these curves, I could see maybe a little bit of the Islamic influence here, some of this curvature. So it's subtle, but I don't try to. We don't try to force feed it down every project. It's more of like a subtle hint. There are projects that are a lot more heavy on the Islamic architecture, but it doesn't mean that every project that we do is embedded with it. It's more of, we understand what the homeowner and the client wants and what their vision of the space is, and then we try to create or amplify basically their vision for the space. It does not mean that every project that we design and build is going to be exactly the same or have Islamic architecture embedded into it. Every project for us is going to be unique. It's just the foundation, I would say, of where I come from, and my heritage is a blend of those things. Even our logo, it speaks loudly of the Kufic calligraphy, and it blends the English typography and blends those together. So it's a blend of different styles to create something unique, which means it doesn't have to, basically, we don't have to recreate the wheel each time. It's about just making it unique and transforming it into something newer as we progress through time. And time again, you can kind of see how architecture, clothing design, and all that, it's a recycle. It's always a recycle. It's with a little bit of a research. You even see a lot of these kind of motifs show up all through Victorian period. Like if you go to Olana, they have all kinds of Persian influences and other things in the architecture. These are like, so I think there was a big interest in what they called Orientalism back then in the Victorian period, but some really cool, some really amazing influences that I think very coherent with some of these older homes. So we were also talking about what you call ADUs. So that's additional dwelling unit.
Yep.
Is that
Yep.
right?
That is
So
correct.
this would be basically addition to the house where you're adding an extra apartment. So there's an example. You said you're working on one now in Newton, Mass.
Yep, we're currently in the design phase for the Shawmut residence, where we're creating an ADU, an auxiliary dwelling unit. It doesn't necessarily have to be connected to an existing residence. It could be on the same lot, but Massachusetts has kind of capped off how many square feet this can be. It can be up to 900 square feet. It can be attached or detached. But the most recent projects that we've either completed or are currently working on have been the ADUs that are connected to the house. One of the ones that we recently completed was the Oldfield residence. It was a very detailed process to work closely with the building department and the zoning department to make sure that they approve how many bedrooms are going, what the square footage is, down to what the septic system is and how that is designed around accommodating this new auxiliary dwelling unit. There's a really big push for this because it's not easy for everybody to just say, oh, I'm going to go buy a new house, or I'm going to build a brand new construction completely from ground up and have 6 bedrooms or 8 bedrooms or whatever it may be. There's also these families that just need that additional space while having privacy from one another. And this is where I think it strongly comes in that ADUs are a huge play for growing families or elderly family members that want to be close to their kids, but allow them to have their own space. And I think we've done a few really great projects that have been successful and provided that space for homeowners while still giving younger families their own space, or just creating a space for 2 younger families. It just comes down to what the homeowner is looking for as a vision and what their needs and wants for the space are, and how we can design around that to create a solution for them.
So when you're doing adaptive reuse projects like this and working with people's existing homes, what's your process for capturing the existing conditions of these homes so that these so you can do accurate renderings and accurate construction down the road?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we go really deep into the documentation process. We use LiDAR scanning. We use accurate field measurements by hand, and then we take a ton of photos. We basically the works. What I've learned over the years is that getting everything as accurate as possible is important to creating a successful final product for homeowners. The more information you have early on, the more accurate the design is going to be, as well as we'll be able to precisely choose finishes for the space versus going off of rough dimensions and whatnot. Something time and time again has happened is that a homeowner or a client says that, oh, we have existing condition plans done by so-and-so. Can you just use those? And we strongly believe that we stand firm in saying that, unfortunately, we don't use those because we don't know how accurate those may have been.
Exactly.
And we can't take that responsibility of just assuming they are taking those dimensions as accurately or precisely as our standards are. And obviously, as technology evolves, there's so many different methods of taking these existing conditions of the space. There's this laser scanning. There's obviously the LiDAR, and it just helps architects and contractors to document the process early on as accurately as possible. And who better to talk about it than yourself, because that's what you do for a living. So you could probably speak on this more than I can for sure, but we're just scratching the surface, I would like to say, in being part of that movement of capturing existing conditions as best as possible But our goal is always to work with other companies or internally just evolve on the technology that is accessible to us to document as accurately as possible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I always say is, the certainty lies in good data, right? And, the path to budget and schedule predictability is always going to lie through good data, right? So, and as you know, since you're involved in both the design and the build, the cost of existing conditions documentation isn't often felt until you're actually in the construction phase, and then you're encountering all these RFIs and issues along the way. And so it's not just about the money people are saving by not sending their college interns to measure it with a tape measure. It's also about the hundreds of hours of coordination meetings that go into things when not everyone is on the same page together. So basically having a single source of truth for the entire team. Oh, and that reminds me, this episode is brought to you by Scandaplan. We're the measure of excellence for architects who lead with control and clarity. When every detail matters, Scandaplan captures your existing conditions with unmatched accuracy. Tolerance is down to 1/8 of an inch, measured so your renderings and schedules start on rock solid ground. So for a design build leader like Jamaal, that means fewer surprises, faster decisions, and the freedom to focus on design. So whether you're preserving a historic barn or sequencing a 12 home communities, certainty lies in good data, and Scandaplan delivers it tailored to your workflow and ready when you are. So Jamaal, so when so it sounds like you work with point clouds, you work with scanning, and then you sort of have a single source of truth for your projects. So how does that way you change the way you sequence a project to sort of have that starting from that data?
So instead of designing in abstract and hoping the site matches, we're designing directly on top of reality, right? That means when we get to construction, surprises are rare. You're not scrambling mid-project to fix issues. You're building what you already proved would fit. So surprises are bare to none. That also helps us avoid change orders down the road, and accuracy really helps us avoid surprises at the end of the day. That's what it really helps with.
Do you have any examples of some place where you might have found something kind of, non-intuitive that the precision of the documentation helped you find something sort of non-intuitive that sort of prevented an issue downstream?
Yeah. So one of the projects, our scans revealed that a structural wall was out of alignment by several inches. If we hadn't caught it, the LVL beam that we designed wouldn't fit once it arrived on site. Because we knew early, we were able to adjust before ordering materials. That one catch literally saved us weeks of delays and tens of thousands of dollars in demolition, framing, and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. So in your workflow, do you guys work in Revit, or I think you mentioned you work in CAD, or?
Yep, it's a mixture of CAD and SketchUp that we do, and we're eventually going to transition into Revit. But at the moment, we're very strongly using CAD and SketchUp. That allows us to kind of have the ability to manipulate the design as needed, specifically to these custom arches that we do and whatnot. So it allows us to kind of think outside of the box. Not that Revit doesn't allow for that. It's just we feel a little bit more comfortable with that in SketchUp, and eventually we're going to transition.
No, I've seen a lot of people using that pairing a lot, and especially in the design build for some reason. It seems like that combination is something that people want a lot from us, So anyway, we were talking a little earlier about Islamic influence in your work, and so you're but then also you're in New England, which has a very deep vernacular and design language. So how does that combination? How does that work for you personally? And give me some examples of how you've kind of synthesized those two influences.
Yeah. So for me, it's always been about identity. The New England vernacular ties me to where I live and work, while the Islamic pattern really connects me to my heritage. Blending the two is my way of creating spaces that are rooted in place. It's about being personal. It's not just about designing for design's sake. It's layered in meaning, and that goes down to the simplicity of our logo, right? So as I mentioned, our rebranded logo blends the Kufic calligraphy with the English typography, and also has a hint of architecture in there if you start really looking at it. And that was a transformation of our original logo, which was an even more abstract take on blending these two styles together. It was just the English typography YDB written with a line with two dots, and those line and two dots was a abstract way of looking at Islamic calligraphy. And as far as how it's translated into our design and architecture and construction projects, you can look at something early on is the Abrar residence, where we did custom barn doors for this homeowner, where they had newly gotten married, and they wanted to have something that was unique to their space, while it kind of was a stamp for their love, let's call it, to romanticize that whole aspect of things. We created these custom barn doors where we custom carved out their names on each of these doors and implemented into their master bedroom renovation with the master suite. And then there's other projects that we've done where we've created Islamic furniture for different kinds of mosques and whatnot, where we've built minbars and whatnot, designed and built them. And it really comes down to like taking hints of these, and then as far as like really making it abstract, I would say, again, going back to like Otis residence, the arches and curves was a subtle nod to the Islamic architecture.
Yeah.
It's just, it doesn't go heavy on all project. It's just a subtle nod, I would say, because again, not every homeowner or client is looking to get something that's infused with Islamic architecture. While they just might like hints of it, we take that and respect it, and we try to blend it in as much as possible. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we've actually done some projects in Saudi Arabia and other parts of the Middle East where you'd never even know it to look at the building. There's really no trace of anything Islamic there. So what's a design belief that you've had that you've been kind of changed your mind about in the past 5 years?
So for me, I would say design and how it has to be original every time, right? It doesn't have to be original every time that you design something new. It's about refinement of something that may have been created. And time and time again, it's been that the work that we've done was basically reimagining a space that existed versus saying, let's tear it down and build a new house in its place. And that comes important in a lot of these New England homes where you have a house, it has good bones, but the interior space just doesn't work. And it's about working with the old bones and reimagining the space. It's basically not reinventing the wheel each time. It's about refining that wheel and how it works. And that it goes back to our cycle of the design build process. It's a refined cycle that we want to give to our clients, that you work with us, you'll get a refined cycle of going through a design process, a smooth process, and then smoothly going into the construction process. And it's just a cycle that want to repeat for every project. And along the way, refining that process. We take what we learn from each project and implement it onto the next project, just so that we can make that wheel rotate a lot more smoother.
So what do you think of yourself more as a designer who does building or a builder who designs?
I am 100% a designer who builds,
Okay.
because my project managers will vouch for that, because whenever I go on site with the mindset of a designer first and an architect first. You go and look at how it's being implemented, and then the construction side of the brain clicks in when I start looking at numbers and whatnot. So it's definitely a balance between the two, but at heart, I am definitely a designer. That's how I looked at things from my youth, and the contractor side of me came in when bills started coming in. That's where that came in.
Yeah, I mean, how do you disable the contractor part of your brain when you're just trying to have a free thinking, inspired design?
I don't think it has to be separated, right? It's about making this process intertwined. It's about balancing the architectural and design side of things with the contractor side of things as well. So when we're talking to homeowners or any other client, we're giving them options based off of the budget that they hope to achieve. So we don't want to create dreams that they won't be able to achieve. We want to create spaces that are tangible. So we'll have that process with our clients of going through different design iterations, and we'll talk about budget early on in the process so that any decisions that they're making are based off of tangible information. It's not just, oh, this is a beautiful design, let's move forward with it without having any cost reference to it. So that's where that design build process comes in handy, is that we'll talk about design, but simultaneously talk about the budget process, budget, and how that is going to affect that design.
Yeah. So anyway, going back to, let's say, I think you said somewhere around 2016 was when you found it, but obviously you said it came out of a lot of development leading up to that. But if you could completely rethink your process from day one, what would you keep from your process and what would you get rid of?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one thing I would not change at all is the level of clarity that we want to give to our clients. That's always served our clients really well. What I discard is the urge I had early on to over customize everything. Now I see that there is value in standardizing the parts that don't matter as much, so we can focus our energy and budget on details that truly shape the experience for the homeowner or the client throughout the process.
Right. So what would a stress-free build look like if the client and the contractor and the permitting office all had perfect real-time data?
I think it would look like if everybody was working off of the same live model. The city would review a permit directly from it. The contractor could schedule trades from it, and then the client could virtually walk through the space in real time. No disconnect, no silos. That's where the industry is headed, and that's where we want to build towards. Make a very seamless process from start to finish.
Have you ever had anything like that? I mean, I know your project's a pretty small scale, but have you ever had any sort of like digital twin or facility management or any of those more kind of sophisticated things for, having a model for a building during the living part of its life cycle?
So what we typically do is we use different softwares and programs to make sure that in the design process that our in the design process, not only does the homeowner have access to kind of review the model with us so that we can look at what's going on in the design side of things, but we share this with our subcontractors as well. So while the design process is happening, in the design process, our subcontractors have eyes on that as well. So they know what to expect. They know what's coming along and how they might have to adjust their scope of work. And I wouldn't say it has gone far as the building departments and them being able to view these things in live live manner, but I think we're working there slowly but steadily.
Yeah. Well, it's I think there's a lot. I think that future is nice to think about, but I think really what needs to happen before we can get there is that from like an AI standpoint, you call it like the semantic layer of buildings, right? So if you think about like an LLM, languages are very complex. They're very irregular. They have there's all kinds of words that have multiple meanings and multiple contexts, and there's all kinds of irregularities in language. So they're really hard to understand. But if you think about something like ChatGPT can understand the human language so well and predict so incredibly well, like what is the next word in the sentence. And yet, even though like building systems are actually much more regular and predictable, we still don't really have that kind of like semantic layer figured out for building systems. And there are a lot of efforts going on to make that possible, right? So that we could have kind of this real-time data sharing amongst municipalities and architects and contractors and homeowners. But they're all, at the moment, all this development is all kind of siloed and proprietary. And so what I've found is when people try to do these more kind of high-end FM solutions, they wind up in a sort of a walled garden or in some kind of siloed area where there is no real sort of open semantic layer for there to be intelligence about buildings and space. That's something I hope we can dedicate some episodes in the future to discussing.
Yeah. No, that would be really interesting to definitely kind of dive into what you just mentioned about AI and how that's going to play a role in the future of design. Funny that you brought that up, because it recently I came across the idea of how AI is helpful in assisting the design side of things, but it's far away from being able to take that entire process altogether, because design on its own has a lot to do with emotion and how the human nature and how the human occupant is going to be conceiving that design. But for example, when we're presenting designs to homeowners or other clients, it's a lot about reading their emotion and understanding, oh, do they honestly feel that scheme A is good for them? If it's not, what other schemes or elements do they feel work for them? It's getting a reading from this other human being to human being connection that I think design comes down to. I think AI and all that is going to be assisting that in some shape or form, but I don't think it'll be taking over it 100% in any shape or form. It'll be a blend of technology and.
I mean, it's like, what a lot of people say, we don't necessarily want AI making all of our art and music. We want it washing our dishes and doing our laundry and helping out with things that would really help us in our lives, right? But I mean, that does get back to what I was saying about the semantic layer for the built world, because you can't have a robot walking around and doing your laundry and picking up your house if it doesn't have like some kind of like accurate digital twin model of what your house actually is, right? And what all the constituent components of your house actually are. So if you had a open semantic layer that robots could understand in any building that they were in, and the digital twins were, using that semantic layer, that kind of creates the foundation for what they call physical AI, which is actually interfacing with robots and other things like that. When it actually, to me, I love the idea of a robot doing my dishes. But not so much a robot designing the building I live in, or coming up with the music I listen to every day. So, I mean, well, anyway, in light of that Jetsons future we're all moving towards, what does practicing forward mean to you right now at this time in your career?
I would say practicing forward really means to me of not getting too comfortable with anything. It's about pushing boundaries. It's whether adopting new technology, blending cultural influences in a deeper way, or scaling Yusra Design Build into a firm that can impact more lives. For me, every project is both a solution and, for today, it has to be a stepping stone toward the design and building process. It's something that has to basically change as we move forward. It's an evolving process.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So, well, I mean, really interesting, exciting work. Everyone, please visit Jamaal's studio. It's yusradesign.com, Yusra Design and Build. Very exciting to see some of these really, really tasteful and obviously very responsive adaptations. Thank you so much for joining today, Jamaal. It was great to talk to you, and look forward to catching up with you soon.
Thank you, Owen, for having us on your podcast, and I look forward to chatting again in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah. So once again, Yusra Design and Build. I'm Owen Bush. It's the Practice Forward podcast, sponsored by Scan to Plan. We're at scantoplan.io. And we'll see you on the next show. Thanks, Jamaal. Have a good day.
Thank you.